Hi everyone, today we'll talk about our sense of smell, which is one of our chemical senses. Our sense of smell, also known as olfaction, is done by specialized cells in the nasal epithelium, which corresponds to number 4 in this diagram. When you smell something, small molecules in the air are binding onto olfactory sensory neurons, called OSNs, in the nasal epithelium. Then the cells in the nasal epithelium relay information to the olfactory bulb, which is number 1. From the olfactory bulb, the signals can go to many different parts of the brain, including the olfactory cortex, the amygdala, and also the entorhinal cortex. The amygdala helps process emotions, and the entorhinal cortex helps process memory. This is why we can have really strong associations and feelings with different smells. Olfaction is a really unique sense because it's far more multidimensional than the other main senses. For example, vision is determined by finite properties of light, such as wavelength or intensity. But for smell, there's basically an infinite number of molecules that can activate OSNs.
One aspect of our perception of smell that is different from most of our other senses like touch, vision, and hearing is that smell is multidimensional. What this means essentially is that many factors affect our perception of smell. Humans have over 1,000 different odor receptors, and each receptor is specifically tuned for different aspects of smell. Odorants, which as you already know, are the small molecules that enter through your nose and bind to your odor receptors, which allows you to smell. Odorants are not necessarily specific to a single type of receptor though. A single odorant can activate multiple different odor receptors at varying strengths, and this results in humans being able to distinguish between over 1 trillion smells. In one experiment, scientists gave participants a series of 3 vials. Each vial contained up to 30 different odorants. 2 of the vials were exactly identical. They contained the same odorants and in the same proportions as well. The third vial was anywhere from 0 to 100% identical to the other 2 vials. The scientists were surprised that subjects could differentiate the different vial even when it was up to 90% identical to the other 2 vials. Even though humans are able to differentiate between a massive number of different smells, the number of smells that we are able to identify by name are actually quite small. Take a second and think of how many specific smells you are able to name. Here are a few common smells that I was able to think of, but you'll quickly find that there are actually quite a small number of smells that you can name. One factor that affects our perception of smell is the volatility of odorants. The more odorants that enter your nose, the more intense you'll perceive a smell as. This affects our sense of smell because some odorants are more volatile than others, meaning that they are more likely to exist in their gas forms, where they will be able to enter our noses. Have you ever baked cookies before? The smell is much stronger when you've just baked the cookies than when you eat them a day or two later, right? This is because increasing the temperature raises the volatility of the odorant molecules in the cookies, which means more odorants enter your nose, contributing to the stronger smell. Another factor that affects our perception of smell is the chemical structures of odorants. Scientists found that odorants that have similar smells also have similar chemical structures. For example, they found that odorants that smell fresh or floral, like mint, often have alcohol groups within their chemical structures. They also found that odorants that smelled like cheese often had carboxylic acid groups in their chemical structures. As you can see, there are many factors that affect our sense of smell, and this allows us to be able to differentiate between a massive number of different odors.
At this point, you all have learned a lot about smell perception and the way it works. Next, we're going to talk about how your smell perception interacts with your taste, and as an added bonus, how your vision can influence your sense of taste too. To learn more about these interactions, we're going to walk through experiments that demonstrate them, but feel free to try these on your own sometime and experience them for yourselves. Let's start with the interactions between taste and smell. We'll give John 2 different flavors of Jolly Ranchers, asking him to close his nose as he's tasting them. Does anyone have any predictions on what's going to happen? First, let's try the experiment with John being able to smell. As you might have guessed, using his sense of smell, John will actually be able to tell the difference between the different flavors. Now let's see what happens when John has a clothespin closing his nose. If you get the chance to try this experiment on your own, you'll find that, like John, you won't be able to taste the difference between the flavors while your nose is closed. This is because the signaling from our taste buds are only part of our experience of taste, and our smell actually makes a significant contribution to our ability to taste different flavors. This makes sense when you consider the limited diversity of tastes our taste buds are able to perceive. Only 5: sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and umami. Our sense of smell, on the other hand, as we mentioned previously, can detect a theoretically limitless number of molecules, and each of those molecules can contribute to unique sensory perceptions. The next set of interactions we're going to talk about are between taste and vision. Before John, we have placed 3 cups of differently colored drinks. One will be colorless, one will be purple, and one will be blue. The catch here is that they're all apple juice. We'll ask John to rank the drinks by best flavor to worst flavor in order to heighten his expectations that the drinks will taste different. What we'll see is that John will actually think that the flavors of the differently colored apple juices taste different to him. This is because his brain is using prior experiences of taste and visual perception to inform his current experiences. In other words, John already has expectations for how a drink that's purple should taste to him and how a drink that's blue should taste to him. Furthermore, most people rarely find themselves trying differently colored things that end up actually tasting the exact same. Using these prior experiences and expectations, John's brain creates the experience of tasting different flavors when in reality, he's actually tasting apple juice every single time.
Let's recap what we have learned about smell. When we smell something, small molecules in the air bind to our olfactory sensory neurons in the nasal epithelium. The cells in the nasal epithelium then relay information to the olfactory bulb, which sends signals to many different parts of the brain, like the olfactory cortex, the amygdala, and the entorhinal cortex. Smell is multidimensional, as the possible chemical structures that may activate our olfactory receptors are nearly unlimited. Many factors affect our sense of smell, like temperature and the chemical structure of odorants. Our senses influence one another. For example, our sense of smell contributes to our ability to taste. Without our sense of smell, we wouldn't be able to notice differences in certain flavors, and we wouldn't be able to enjoy our food as much as we do now. Smell is not the only sense that can impact our sense of taste. Our vision also has an influence as well. For instance, we may perceive different colored drinks to have a different taste, when in reality, the flavor is the exact same. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something new about smell.